Hello BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with a weekly reads, and today is Sunday, December the 24th, 2017. Merry Christmas Eve, everyone. Yes, I am recording this on Christmas Eve. This is the first chance I have had all weekend to actually sit down and do a couple videos. I have been on the go since yesterday morning. It started out, completely unintentionally. I had absolutely planned on sitting down on Saturday morning like I always do to record my videos, and I went to pick my husband up from work, and I pulled into his parking lot, and the engine of my car was smoking, like smoke billowing out from under the engine hood, which is never a good thing. So I ended up having to call roadside assistance. I had to have my car towed to a place to have it looked at. I didn't take it back to the dealership because I knew they wouldn't get a chance to look at it. And my huge fear was that A, it was going to cost me a lot of money, and you guys know if you own a vehicle, something goes wrong with it, it can end up costing big money. And my second fear is that if it didn't get fixed yesterday, I wasn't going to get it back till like the 27th, because here in Canada, not only is Monday, of course, Christmas, but we actually have the 26th as a statutory holiday as well. So, and this place wasn't open on Sunday, so I would have lost 3 days. But thankfully it was a relatively minor and relatively inexpensive, considering it was a car repair. It was under $200. One of the hoses or something like broke, and it was like spilling stuff all over my engine, and a fluid all over my engine. So still, when I have the heater on now, you can still kind of smell it. But anyway, I didn't get my car back till like later yesterday afternoon, but I did get it back, thank goodness. And because I would have hated to have been without a vehicle. And then I wasn't feeling well all afternoon, so I ended up sleeping for like 3 or 4 hours yesterday, and I had to take my husband to work. And then this morning I went out with my mom, and then we went over to my grandmother's because my cousin was up visiting from Ottawa. He's not coming up tomorrow because he's having Christmas with his mother, but he was up to see his dad and my grandmother and stuff like that. So we went and saw him, and we were there a lot longer than I anticipated. And then I got home and I had to kind of get everything ready to film my videos, and I'm like, oh, so here I am. So sorry for the long explanation, but you can understand what a crazy last few days it's been for me. Luckily, actually, tomorrow it's going to be relatively quiet. The Hubs and I, of course, don't have kids. He has his kids, but they're older and stuff like that, and so we're just going to relax tonight. We've ordered a pizza. I have to go pick it up, in the next 45 minutes. And we're going to sit and relax and watch some movies, and I'm going to do some knitting. And then tomorrow we're going back over to my grandmother's for Christmas dinner, but I'm not really expected over there till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so that's a good thing. But I wanted to record these today because I wanted to get this video, especially this one, up for you guys. The other two will go up, of course, during the week. So to start off with, what is my tea for today? Sadly, it is the very last day of the Advent calendar from David's, and it makes me sad because I love that Advent calendar. But I'm using my Santa Claus mug. Oh, speaking of which, my little 7-year-old niece got a phone call from Santa this afternoon. It was super adorable. She was beyond excited. I wish I gotten it on video. But Santa legitimately called my sister-in-law's phone, and Katie talked to him, and he was en route with the elves, and he's doing his deliveries, but he took a few minutes to call her and tell her that he'd be coming later and she needed to get to bed and all those things. And it's just, technology nowadays is so awesomely amazing, and I love it. I love that Santa got cell phone reception. Because believe me, if I go a little bit up north, I can't get cell phone reception. But anyway, so I'm using my Santa Claus mug. I bought this at a thrift store a couple of years ago, and it's absolutely adorable. It says, "To Santa at the North Pole," which Santa does have a Canadian address, by the way, I might add. It's super adorable. And then on the back, it says, "Dear Santa," what does it say? "It really wasn't my fault," which is so appropriate. But the tea that I am actually drinking is Santa's Secret. It is the final tea, day 24 for the David's Tea Advent Calendar. It's been this tea for the past 4 years that I've been getting the calendar. It's kind of the one thing you always know. But this is a black tea, and it's got candy cane pieces in it. It is to die for. If you can get it, and I'm pretty sure you can still probably get it online. I'm pretty sure also that David's Tea is going to have an after Christmas sale. Check it out. It is a really, really yummy tea. If you're the kind of person who likes to add sugar to your black tea, try this one without it and just see, because it's got a really nice sweetness to it. So there's like candy cane and a little hint of vanilla. It's really, really yummy. So yeah, I may have bought like a lot of this last season and it's still in my cupboard, so that's a good thing. So let's jump into the books that I finished this week. I actually finished reading 5 books this week. I was surprised when I sat down to kind of put everything together that I'm like, I thought I'd only finish 4, but lo and behold, I had finished 5. So the first one that I finished this week was The Christmas Present by Tracy Wolff. I gave this book 3 stars. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.34 stars. This is a Harlequin super romance. I got 4 challenges completed out of this one. The first one was the Connections Challenge. It was the 7th book in the Connections Challenge. The next one was the 11th book for the Anti-Stress Holiday Challenge, which is just read a book with a holiday featured in it. I got this one also for the Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree Challenge, which was challenge number 4, Jingle Bell Rock. Read a book with the word jingle, bell, or rock in the title, or a 1, 9, 5, or 7 in the total page count. 1957, I think, was the year that Jingle Bell Rock was released. And the last one is the new By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge, and I got 3 words out of that challenge. This was a good book, like 3 stars. It was an average read. It was about a woman who is I believe she's actually a divorce lawyer, and she's been hired to do a pro bono case to try and get a young man. He's only 16 years old. He's being charged with the murder of his girlfriend and unborn child. So it's a lot of very heavy topics in this book. The gentleman in question is this young boy's like guardian of sorts, if you will. He runs a center where troubled teens can go and like do homework and play video games and kind of have a safe environment. And so the two of them, of course, are kind of like coming to head with each other about the way the case is handled and things like that. It was really well written. It was very enjoyable. Nothing too spectacular. It was a good read, and I liked it. The next book that I finished was Burning Bright, and this was an anthology by Maggie, Shayne, and Stuart, and Judith Arnold. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.80 stars, and I got 4 challenges for this one. The first was for the Triple RC monthly challenge. It was number 7, which was National Flashlight Day, which was read a book with a light source on the cover. And of course, there's a candle burning on the cover of this. The next one, again, for the Anti-Stress Holiday Challenge. This was book number 13 for that. Another one for the Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree Challenge, number 9, The Christmas Song, also called Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire. And it's read a book with the word song in the title or has fire on the cover. Candles make fire. And the last one was for the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge for 2 words. This one was, like I said, an anthology of 3 stories. The first one was a Christian Christmas story about a woman who is trying to find her Christmas spirit again and things like that. The second story took place during the winter solstice with a woman who had, like all this, a very successful job and all these things, and then she gets let go from this job, and it's a year later, and she's back in this small town where she kind of grew up. And again, it's all about finding your way. And same with the third story. It takes place at Hanukkah, about a woman who lost her grandmother, and she's trying to carry on the traditions. And of course, all 3 of them find love. There's a great magical element that's woven throughout all 3. All 3 stories take place in the same small town. And there is some crossover between some of the characters, which is always really fun. But they all take place about this candle shop, and they all get these magical candles kind of idea. And it's a really, really great story, or great stories. I really enjoyed them. They were all really well written. And, if you want a quick little holiday anthology, this is an older book, but I absolutely recommend it because not only were they great stories, but it was really nice to read about the different religious beliefs and, other holidays that take place at this time of the year, not just Christmas. The next book that I finished was What Light by J. Asher. This was narrated on audio by Mandy Siegfried. I gave this book 3 stars. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.56 stars, and I got 4 challenges completed for this one as well. So the first one was the Triple RC monthly challenge number 8, Christmas Eve, which was essentially read a Christmas story. The next one, again, the Anti-Stress Holiday Challenge, book number this was number 12 for that. This was the book of the month for one of the books of the month for the a Million More Pages group on Goodreads. And the last one was for the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge for 2 words. I really did want to like this book, but I had a very hard time with it. No, I shouldn't say that. There weren't problems with it. It was a really cute, really sweet little holiday read. But I finished this book on Monday, and it's now a week later, and a lot of the details are escaping me. It wasn't memorable, let's put it that way. When I was reading it, I was thoroughly enjoying it, but it's not a story that stays with you for a long time. Do you know what I mean? It's, it's a super sweet story about a young girl. I think she's in grade 11, and her family owns a Christmas tree farm, and they live in Oregon. Oregon? I always say that wrong, and I do apologize. Oregon. And they travel to Northern California I think it's Northern California, to sell the Christmas trees on this Christmas tree lot that used to belong to her grandparents. So they've been doing this for 30 years. It's all she's ever known, that they leave for the entire month of December, like right from Thanksgiving, to sell these Christmas trees. She meets a local boy, and he's kind of got a past, and the story goes from there. It's your typical YA contemporary romance. It's super cute, super sweet, very tame. There is no questionable behavior with the characters in this, which I really did appreciate and like that they didn't have to go there with it. But again, it just wasn't super memorable. I mean, if you like YA contemporary and you're looking for a cute holiday read, definitely check it out. But if it's not your jam, then I wouldn't bother. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I read it, but I'm glad I got it from the library and I didn't actually buy it. The last 2 books that I finished were actually both novellas. The first one is One Snowy Night by Jill Shalvis. This was the book 2.5 in the Heartbreaker Bay series. It was narrated on audio by Karen White. I gave it 4 stars, and it has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.73 stars. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. The first one was for the KPPM challenge, which was it's the radio station challenge, and this week, of course, was Christmas music. And the song was Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and the prompt was to read a little book between 125 to 175 pages. This one came in at 160 pages, so it was perfect. The next one was book number 14 for the Anti-Stress Holiday Challenge. And the last one was for the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge. This I was able to use for the bonus, which was the Better by the Dozen bonus. And what that is to read books that actually have a number in the title. And this was, of course, called One Snowy Night, so I got it for number 1. You can't repeat numbers, though, so the next one will have to be 2, 3, or something like that. I haven't given myself a limit on this. I'd like to get up to book 6, but we shall see what I can come up with as I'm reading over the next little while. I didn't realize that this novella came before the next book. And then I was looking at Goodreads to input all my information when I read Blame It on the Mistletoe, which was book number 2, and or The Trouble with Mistletoe, excuse me. And I noticed that book number 2.5 was this one, and that it was a holiday book, so I'm like, I have to read it. Luckily, my library had a copy on audio, so I was able to grab it to read, which made me super happy. I really liked it. This was the story of Willa and Max, and not Willa, excuse me, of Rory and Max. Willa was the character in book number 2, and Rory actually worked at her animal shop, or her pet shop, if you will. And I really liked Rory. And part of the story was alluded to in the last book, like you kind of got the beginnings of it, because the whole premise is that Rory is going home to visit her family in Tahoe, and Max is going there as well, and he has offered to give her a ride. Well, the two of them have never really gotten along, so it's kind of an enemies to lovers story. You can read it as a standalone. A lot of the backstory of the other characters from the first 2 books don't come into play. There was one phone conversation with Willa, but I could have completely understood what the phone call was about without reading the second book. So, if you're interested in just kind of dipping your toes into the series, definitely give this one a read, because it was super adorable, and I really enjoyed it. And the last book that I finished this week was another novella, like I said, and that was The Blackest Crimson by Debra Webb. This was book 0.5 in the Shades of Death series. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it has an average rating of 4.20 stars on Goodreads, and I got 2 challenges completed out of this. This I got for the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge for 3 words. And even though this takes place, the very beginning of the story takes place at Christmas, I decided to use it for the Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree Challenge, because this was one that I wasn't going to find with any other book. And this was for challenge number 2, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. I know, it's so morbid, isn't it? And that's read a murder mystery or a book where there is some kind of accident central to the plot. So, this book was difficult, and like I said, the very beginning of it took place at Christmas time, but the bulk of the story takes place over the course of about a 2-week period. If you read the First Shades of Death book, No Darker Place, sorry, I read it in November, you don't necessarily have to read this one. I just have a thing where I like to read a complete series, so I decided to go back and read this one. This story is given to you in the first book without the detail. And what I mean by that is that just kind of takes what they tell you in book 1 and they expand the detail to what happened to Bobby when she was caught and taken by the storyteller. The hardest part about this book for me to reading it was that you know what happens. I don't want to give anything away, any spoilers to the first book, but when she's first taken by the storyteller, and you find this out right at the very beginning of this book, of both books actually, that her husband is killed by him. Like, this guy enters her home and kills her husband immediately, then goes after her. Well, she has a little boy, and she pushes that little boy out the front door and tells him to go for help. You know in book number 1 what happened to that little boy. In this book, she doesn't know yet. And I think that's the most heartbreaking thing, because throughout the entire book, and again, I'm really trying not to give away spoilers, but I kind of have to kind of explain. But like I said, you find it out right at the very beginning of the first book, and that her son was killed. As he was running to the neighbor's house, he was hit by a car. Like, it was a freak accident unrelated to this serial killer, but she doesn't know that. And the whole time that the serial killer is holding her and doing these horrific things to her, it didn't get into the details as graphic as the first book, but it was still pretty brutal to read. The whole time she's thinking she just wants to get home to her baby. And even right at the very end, that's all she's thinking about. And you know, if you'd read the first book, that this is what happened. And I don't know, I meant to look, I'm pretty sure actually the first book came out before this one. So I think she went back and wrote this one to kind of give a little bit more detail on what happened to Bobby. I'm glad I read it. Again, I as brutal and as disturbing as this series is, I'm enjoying it. It's so well written. But it's very, very, it's a difficult read. These are not happy, cheery books. Even though, you know, things kind of work out in the end, at least they do, you know, in the first full book, it's still not a happy way to get there, if you know what I mean. So anyway, yeah, so those are all the books that I read this week. Let's get into what I am currently reading. I am currently listening to Mr. Dickens and His Carole by Samantha Silva. I've been looking forward to this book all month, and I decided that this week was going to be the week that I was going to read it. This is being narrated on audio by Ewan Morton. I'm about 20% of the way through it right now. It's really, really well written. And the premise of this is it's a historical fiction novel. And it's about Dickens writing A Christmas Carol. You know, a lot of it, of course, we don't know about conversations that took place or things like that. And a lot of it's been embellished. But the basic premise is there that, you know, Charles Dickens was pretty much about to become bankrupt and was told by his publishers that he needed to write a Christmas book in less than a month. Or else they were going to start calling in his debts because, of course, he had been advanced for the books that he was writing. And then at that time, the books were written in a serialized format where every month another chapter would be published in a magazine. And the last story that he was writing wasn't doing so well. And because they advanced him, he was living a pretty lavish lifestyle. And, you know, so he kind of needed to make good on, you know, the money they advanced him. So he had to write this story. So that's pretty much where I am right now, is him kind of deciding, was he actually going to write this story or not. And my current ebook is Montana's Secret Santa by Debra Salonen. I can't say her last name. I do apologize. This is book number 3 in the Love at the Chocolate Shop series. I love this series so, so much. This is about a woman named Krista, and she is new to the town of Marietta, Montana. She's been there about a year, and she has been kind of asked to be part of this society in town called the Secret Santa Society. And what they do is they kind of get donations and do Secret Santa deliveries to less fortunate families. And Jonah was born and raised in town, but he's come back. He's a .com billionaire now. And he's kind of sold his last company. He's trying to decide what he's going to do next with his life. And of course, the two of them meet up and the story goes from there. I love these stories so much. I love the covers of these books. I think they're just adorable. And I am really enjoying this one. I'm about 30 or 40% of the way through it at this point, so I should get this one done in the next few days. The other thing I was just going to say very quickly is that I've cut some books off of my TBR for the month of December. I was going to try and read Mistletoe Murder by, oh gosh, I can't remember her name. Oh, it's a cozy mystery series, and I was going to read it for that Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer challenge, but I just realized I'm not going to have time to get to it. And the other two books I cut off were the ones for the Connections Challenge. I'm going to talk more about this in my next video when I talk about my 2018 goals and challenges, but I've cut that challenge out just because, surprisingly, it is one of the most difficult challenges to do because you're trying to match books almost perfectly. Words in the title, authors, years, things like that, and I've just decided it's not worth it. It's a cute little challenge. I like the idea, but I don't want to stress myself out over it. So anyway guys, that is it for this video. It's a little bit shorter than normal, than my normal weekly reads. I hope that's cool. I'm sure you guys have all a gazillion things to do, and a lot of you probably won't even be watching this until after the holidays. So I absolutely appreciate any time you sit down with me. Thank you so, so much. Of course, I will be back next Saturday, so it will be before 2018. But like I said, I have a couple videos coming up this week. The next one I'm going to film, like I said, is my 2018 goals and challenges video. And then after that will be my massive January 2018 TBR video. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, guys, I hope you all have a very, very Merry Christmas for those who celebrate. For those who don't celebrate, just have a wonderful, wonderful day. And yeah, until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Bye.